Welcome to episode 12 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, we'll run the rule over the first major of the year in Tokyo. We break down the stats on a record-breaking day for the 6-star finisher family. And Deena chats to Dr Steve Sigmund, who was part of that amazing day in Tokyo. And as spring training gets really serious, we'll be bringing you some more advice on this crucial phase of training. Deena, how are you?
I'm great, Martin. It has been a wild 2 weeks with the Abbott World Marathon Majors kicking off in Tokyo, some great performances on the track, and my crazy travels to South Carolina. It was a nutso trip, more stress than any other trip I've been on in my traveling age. So wild couple of weeks. What have you been up to?
That's quite some comment to make, isn't it? Like, we were chatting before we started recording and you said, I think my journey was probably the most horrendous I've ever had. And you've done quite a lot of travelling, you know, with all your racing and training around the world. So it must have been a proper shocker.
Yeah, you and the listeners are probably getting sick of hearing about the amounts of snow we're getting, but I needed to fly out to South Carolina for the women's SEC basketball tournament, and the highway was closed down because of snow and lack of visibility. So I missed my flight, rebooked it for the next day. The highway was still closed, but I was hopeful it would open. So I was waiting in this long line of cars, and someone turned the corner too quickly and sideswiped my car. There is so much damage to it.
No.
Luckily, it could drive with a police escort to the airport. I got off to South Carolina fine from then on, but I got food poisoning from eating some southern grits and fried green tomatoes. And then finally, it was an amazing experience to be in the center of that basketball court and get an award. But you know, when you cross the finish line of a race and that medal sums up the accomplishment of that race itself, this award I got sums up horrific traffic. Not my time at the University of Arkansas and my amazing experience in the NCAA, but it sums up that trip. So it sits here on my shelf. And that's what I think of when I see this trophy. I'm like, oh my God, I withstood the most horrendous travel experience of my lifetime.
Yeah, but the trophy's worth it, right? The trophy's worth it. And you are right in the thick of your Paris marathon training. She's looking at me. You can't see, but she's kind of looking at me going, we know where this is going. You are in the thick of your amazing training for the Paris marathon. Is form just, beautifully shaping up at the moment?
Thanks, Martin. I'm having heart palpitations, a slight panic attack. I'm not prepared. My longest run has been 1 hour and 35 minutes, and I am about a month away from this race. So I'm panicking, no doubt about it. I need advice from you. I'm going to need advice.
Have you ever towed the start line of a marathon where you have felt underprepared before? Like properly underprepared? Is this a debut for underpreparedness for you?
This is the least prepared I have been. And there's so many times where you get the start line and you're like, I wish I had another couple of weeks of training or got in another long run. And I feel like that's pretty common for most of us. But to be so underprepared, my husband's like, you'll be fine. This is, you've got all these miles stored in your body. Well, no, you regenerate cells every few months. So I'm not that prepared.
So what do you feel are the biggest gaps? What exciting things can you look forward to suffering?
I have mental strength. I have that going for me. That's the only thing I have on my side is like the will to go, to keep moving. It's going to be a suffer fest, and I have to acknowledge that it's going to be really painful. I'm not going to taper because I need to get in all the miles I can until Paris. I'll taper when I get on that airplane and am forced to rest on the long journey there. But I'm going to have to get in every mile I can from now until then. It's crazy.
Does that mean that you're going to think about, okay, so I don't know, if a couple of months ago was your goal to run Paris in a particular way, or now have you changed that and you're thinking, well, I'm going to roll up and, I'm going to have my a giant koala bear costume on and I'm going to float round in 6 hours, you know, or what's it going to look like?
You're onto something, because I think if I run in a giant koala costume, I will have an excuse for running as slowly as I'm about to run this race. So I'm putting it out there. Tell me the costume I should wear, and I will wear it so that I have an excuse for being so ill prepared for this.
We should get the team at Abbott World Marathon Majors to run a competition called Dress Deena. We'll see what we can, let's see what we can get Deena on the start line of Paris wearing. What is she going to be fancy dressed as, running around the streets of Paris?
And unfortunately, it might be a giant koala bear on the side of the road at like mile 18, just unable to go any farther.
It'd be like one of those comedy sketch shows, like a giant bear rolling about in the street. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Your husband's right. You've got lots of training years behind you. You've got loads of experience to pace yourself. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I've been park running. I remember telling you this last time. You said, how did you go? How was your 5K? And I think I told you the time. And I remember looking at your face and it was like, oh yeah, right, whatever. And I've now improved a little bit. My 5K time's got a little bit quicker. I'm now down to 18:12. So it's getting a bit quicker. Going in the right direction.
Isn't your goal to run, was it 16:45 is like your ultimate goal this season? I think you said that.
I think that might be mildly ambitious. It would be good to go under 18 first, and then as far under 18 as possible would be great. Yeah, so I've enjoyed a bit of a rinse round, a 5K. It always ignites a bit of spring kind of passion for running to get back and try and turn the heat, no matter where you're at. You know, I don't need to run quickly. I need to be just running hard and get that feel of putting some effort in. I've also ridden a road bike, Deena, like old school racer with the saddle like a razor blade for the first time in about 12 years too.
We won't ask about that razor blade saddle, but this is your new road bike that you recently purchased, right? That you wanted to get out. And you know that kind of cross training on top of your running is going to help your park runs as well. So that's awesome. How have your rides been?
They're great. I've only been on one.
Okay.
I've only been on one. It was actually a gift, the road bike, from my father-in-law, which was brilliant. I'm loving it. So yeah, back on it. And especially as where I live, there's a little ferry that takes you across to a nice quiet part of southwest in Dorset called the Purbex. And I go over on the little boat and I take the bike and I get to ride around some quieter lanes. I've missed it because the ferry has been shut for about 4 months. So it reopened for the spring and I jumped on it on my bike and loved it. I've also, and I'm not going to dominate the show with this, but I've been watching the European Indoor Championships. The European Indoors were recent in Istanbul, and Keely Hodgkinson, I've just got to say how amazing she looked. You know, winning 800 metres, running 1:58, front running the whole way and winning by about 8 metres. I mean, what an impressive performance.
And she looked so strong and smooth. It looked like she made it look easy. Like nobody but her makes running sub 2 in the 800 look as smooth and effortless as she did in that race. It was really a beautiful race to watch.
Yeah. And of course, Jakob Ingebrigtsen was, I think, impressed amazingly as well, winning the double over 15 and 3,000 and then saying afterwards, well, everybody was racing for second anyway, weren't they? I think it was one of his press interviews afterwards. His
interviews are getting a little cockier and cockier by the season, but it's fun. It's going to be what makes an upset really upsetting when it happens, right? I mean, nobody wins forever, so inevitably he's going to be beat. So, he's still backing it up anyway, right? He still backs up that kind of talk, but also an effortless runner. Great races indoors there.
Yeah, good to see. Shall we talk about the rest of the news? Let's get into Tokyo. So it was the first Abbott World Marathon major of the spring, and it was in Tokyo at the weekend. It was an absolute belter of a race weekend. We'll start with the men's. It was a real banger, not necessarily in the kind of jaw-dropping times that we see in the likes of Eliud Kipchoge is running, pushing the pace right at the very front. But this one did end up in quite an exciting three-way sprint finish. Good old-fashioned dust-up right to the very line. It was Ethiopia's Deso Gelmisa who just got it done on the line against Mohamed Issa, with Sige Getachew just behind the pair of them. It was a very strong race all the way, but mostly it was about that sprint finish. The favourite, the pre-race favourite, Cisse Lema, really didn't figure at all. As always, the depth of Japanese marathon running is insane, and so there was a bunch of top Japanese runners right in the mix right until the end, with a couple of them dipping under 2:06. But it was Ethiopian domination, really, in an amazing sprint finish, running 2:05:22. Gil Misa battled his way to victory. It was, in fact, the same time as fellow Ethiopian Mohamed Issa, but he just got there in the front, with Getachew just 3 seconds behind. It was an all-Ethiopian podium right at the top end. It was also an amazing run for Canadian Cam Levins. He was fourth recently, fourth in the World Championships, running 2:07:09, and then runs a North American record in Tokyo in bagging fifth place in 2:05:36, beating Khalid Kanuchi's previous North American record in the process. I mean, that is a monster run from Cam Levins, isn't it?
Yeah, he ran over a minute faster than his personal best, the previous Canadian record, his personal best. Just an amazing run by Cam Levins. He was in that top group the entire time and looked good in it. It didn't look like he was out of his comfort zone until that finish. Nobody wants a marathon to come down to a sprint finish. That just has to hurt so badly. But seeing the top 9 men under 2 hours, 6 minutes, and Cam Levins getting that Canadian record, lowering his Canadian record, was so impressive. It was a great day in Tokyo. The conditions were perfect, from the cannon and confetti that shot off at the start line until the finish line. And so I think a lot of the athletes were taking advantage of that, of the perfect conditions.
Yeah. Have you ever been in a massive sprint finish like that in a marathon?
I have not been in a massive sprint finish, but I was running for dear life in the 2005 Chicago Marathon when Constantina Dita of Romania was coming up on me, and I had to dig like I have never dug before. And it's a scary feeling. Your body is numb from fatigue, but also numb from the fight. And it's hard, but you put in all that work, you're going to put in all that effort to make sure that you get the best out of yourself come the finish line.
That is, you've never dug like you have done before until Paris this year.
Oh no, the pain is already starting. It's like an emotional pain that's going to last all month long. Should we talk about the women's race in Tokyo? It was a little more true to form, wasn't it? A little more true that the top 2 fastest women in the field were in the top 3. The winner was Rosemary Wanjiru, who actually lives and trains in Japan. So she had a lot of crowd support, probably feeling that support along the way. She ran 2:16:28, the 7th fastest time in history. And this is how all major marathons are going these days. Every one of these races, they're cracking into that top 10. Sige Getachew was second in 2:16:56, so not too far behind. And Ashede Bekele was the 2019 Berlin champion. She came in third in 2:19:11. So much more true to form racing, not as intense in the front. But I will give a shout out to Team USA over in Tokyo. USA's Betsy Siena was 5th in 2:21 and Lindsay Flanagan 8th in 2:26. Just really impressive running by both of these women from the United States, booking their tickets to the Olympic trials.
It was a big PB actually for Rosemary Wanjiru. 7th fastest time in women's marathon history there, running a 2:16:28 and 92 seconds, minute and 32 seconds faster than her previous PB that she set in Berlin last year. I know we've been there before, Deena, but when we get all these kind of sub 2:17 women towing the line, it's going to be pretty exciting stuff. It was amazing chair racing as well. It was absolutely dominated in the pushing events by Marcel Hug and Manuela Schaab. They both set course records and both won the 8 series bonus points as well for the sprint at the 10K marker. Unbelievably, Marcel Hug hasn't lost a race since Chicago in 2021. He didn't start in Boston in 2022. Yeah, Hug looked as imperious as ever. Contrastingly, Schaab hasn't actually won a marathon since Boston 22, but she seems to be back to a 2021 form, and he's going to be pretty hard to beat in the rest of the majors this year. Now, it was a big day for Abbott World Marathon Majors, a landmark day for 6-star finishers too, because Tokyo is now the proud owner of a Guinness World Record for the most 6-star finishers at a single marathon. The final figure, as we're recording this, is yet to be determined while the race sorts out little things like any chip malfunctions and DQs and other things. However, we know that the Abbott World Marathon Major team gave out more than 3,000 6-star finishers medal at the same race. That's impressive, isn't it? Who do you think, Deena, was the top performing nationality? Which country got the most 6 stars?
I have a cheat sheet right in front of me, Martin, so I can't authentically guess at this one. I do have a cheat sheet. The USA is on top with 982 6-star finishers. Great Britain second, 310, and Canada in third at 187. And in Tokyo, Pakistan earned its first 6-star medal, and it was Salman Khan. I saw it on social media. So proud to be representing Pakistan with a 6-star medal. Some great social media if you guys want to check out Abbott World Marathon Majors. You could see that Guinness World Record plaque that was presented at the finish line. Just an exciting day for all the over 3,000 finishers that were a part of that journey.
Yeah, it's a real emotional time. You know, you've got a 6-star finishers medal, and for over 3,000 other people, they picked up theirs too. Like, picking up your Abbott World Marathon Majors 6-star is not something that you can do quickly or easily. You know, you've got to dedicate some real time in training and, you know, over a number of years. As we saw in last week's interview, you know, it took Alfred 46 years, even though I aged him 11 years. It still took him a long time to get his finishers medal. And I know it means a lot to people because, as you know, I'm the CEO of a charity in the UK called Stormbreak that we run programs for children's mental health. We use movement to support those children. And my co-founder at Stormbreak, Judy Willits, bagged her 6-star finishers medal in Tokyo. So she sent us a lovely photo looking all proud, holding her 6-star medal out. So a little personal congrats to Judy Willits.
I did see that. Congratulations, Judy. And what I found so amazing in her story, in Alfred's story in episode 11, in today's segment when we interview Dr. Steve Sigmund, is how when these people are going to these different countries and different cities to race, they really make a vacation out of it. I loved how Alfred was really into baseball. So while he was in Tokyo, he was going to some of the local baseball games and really fitting in your passion, whether that's food or other sports or visiting iconic sites, that people really make the best of their marathon weekend. Or in Dr. Sigmund's case, I think he's staying there for almost 2 weeks. So people really living it up in these places, and well done to everybody. There have been over 11,000 6-star finishers to date. 3,000 of them just crowned this past weekend, but just fantastic job for people. Some people even have done it multiple times. There are 40 runners who have completed their second round of their 6-star journey, 5 who have completed their third round, and 1 runner who just finished their 4th 6-star finishers journey. I just can't imagine the investment of time that goes into that, and money, right? This is a lot of travel. travel for people to go on. Amazing and well done, everybody.
Four 6 stars. Wow. It's not just about 6-star finishes, though. It's, of course, a full spring marathon season. We're just about to enter into other spring marathons, and the TCS London Marathon is coming up in April, and towing the line will be Scot and British athlete Eilish McColgan. And I am quite excited about seeing her debut, especially as she has just run a new British record for 10,000 metres on the track in California last weekend. She ran an amazing 30 minutes on the nose. I mean, that must be tough. She ran 30:00.8, I think. She went through the first half in 15:09 and the second half in 14:51, closing with a 64-second final 400 meters to win that race in California. Isn't that just extraordinary?
Yes, it's very common for people in marathon training to also be in very good 10K shape. But the fact that she could close in 64 seconds in marathon training, she's in the thick of training right now, right? She's in the bulk of it, doing those heavy miles, and to put in this long travel day to get to California. Busy travel, and I'm sure it went better than mine previously did, but just fascinating that she could put together such a well-executed race. She now holds every British record from the 5K to the half marathon. And many of those records taken from Paula Radcliffe, including the 10K the 10,000 meters that she just set. That's an extraordinary range. And now she's going to be tapping into the marathon. I'm so excited to see how she does at that distance.
Yep, she broke Paula Radcliffe's 10,000 meter record. She also owns the 5,000 meter record at 14:28, the half marathon at 66:26. Now this 10,000 meters on the track. What will she do at London? I mean, can you see another British record on her debut? That would be extraordinary if she went and ran inside 2:15:25, I think, which was Paula's unbelievable world record for so long. Well, she's obviously in very, very good form. I tell you what, though, it wasn't just British records that were broken in that race. The American Elisa Monson ran brilliantly too, right?
She did, and she actually led most of the race. She was almost a pace setter for Eilish McColgan, breaking the American record. She ran 30:03:82. She trains under Dathan Ritzenhein in Colorado, the great Dathan Ritzenhein, who's now coaching a group up in Boulder, Colorado. And she just ran so beautifully. I knew she was in good shape. She had been showing in workouts and in previous races that she was in great shape and that she was gunning for this record, but the two of them were greatly matched and really helped each other to achieve that goal.
And it's so difficult, isn't it, to run a negative split like that? They both went through in 15:09. Monson ran 14:54 second half. She ran, I think, a 67 last lap to McColgan's 64. But that's, again, great running over 10K on the track. And she pushed you another step down the American rankings, right? You're now down in ninth place, and you used to be a holder of that American record.
Yeah, I've been a previous American record holder at this distance, and I am now almost off the books, off the charts because of the performances. But how exciting is it for fans of the sport from the track races we're already seeing this season? It's the beginning of track season, and we're already breaking national records up through the marathon. We've got a lot of marathons coming up this spring and into the fall. And so it's really an exciting time to just see not just records being broken, but entire record books being rewritten. People that were once on the leaderboards are no longer even in the books at all. So exciting time to be a fan of this sport, truly.
So as we see track running for American women and British women going really fast, Eilish McColgan is heading towards a spring marathon, and so may some of you be. So in Training Talk this week, we thought we'd look a little bit at putting that final icing on the cake in terms of running a little bit quicker as marathon draws closer. For many of you running a spring marathon, you may just have weeks away, certainly the last few stages in your marathon build up in the training, and then you're straight into the taper. So we've seen some really fast running over the last few weeks. Marathon running though, Deena, should you bother in these last kind of 6 weeks before a spring marathon, 4 to 6 weeks, to drop in some faster sessions? I always struggle here because I think, do you jeopardize the amazing work that you've done already and perhaps think, I'm just going to eke out, those extra seconds over some miles, or do you just steady things along and keep trucking? Should you bother with some very focused, very specific, kind of probably more focused towards 10K sessions, 5K, 10K as you lean into your marathon race, or should you just keep them at bay?
Yeah, I think, gosh, it's such a hard question to answer because everybody's preparations have been so slightly different. I don't know about specific and like popping times that are equivalent to something you would be doing in the middle of track season when you have marathon legs and those miles under your belt. But I do think that having a speed session is important for injury prevention, making sure you don't get sluggish in the late buildups of your marathon when you're just continuing those miles. You tend to get that marathon shuffle. So I do think speed work is really important, but not making sure you're not comparing yourself to your fastest self, right? You're just opening up your stride and you're getting in some stronger runnings. I would even say a really safe thing to do would be more fartlek style running, right? Like picking a light post up ahead and opening up and trying to get there a little faster. That would be the safest thing to do. But I do think it's important to not get stuck in that marathon pace or even sub-marathon pace, mostly for injury prevention. What about you? How would you incorporate speed?
I don't think I would go to the edge of, like pure track speed at this late in a marathon build-up. But doesn't it feel good when you're in marathon shape, when your long runs have been going well and you can go out on the roads or the trails and you can bang out some K repeats, and you can consistently do them. So your legs are turning quickly, your upper body and your arms and your head are smooth and focused, and you can just channel like all that marathon strength into turning out 8 times 1 kilometer. And you are going along, relative for you, of course, but you're really going for it, and you can shorten your recovery right down, but you can still go fast. And that does give you that little turning edge of, kind of a top bit of focus, tuning up your marathon speed. And then when you revert back to running at marathon pace, you kind of think to yourself, okay, well, this feels like I'm chugging, because I've done that high quality, little bit of sustained kind of threshold, faster running, and you hang in, but at the same time, it's in the tank.
It's a great point, because I was talking about the physical benefits of injury prevention and kind of elongating your stride a little bit. And you're touching on the mental side of it, the side that says, oh, I just now dropped back down to marathon pace, and this is feeling pretty comfortable compared to those mile repeats or kilometer repeats that I just did yesterday. So there we go. We just chatted through it. It is good for you. But when should your last speed session be? If you have a marathon coming up, when should your last speed session be in that preparation?
Well, I think next show, we'll talk much more in detail about tapering. But look, I like to actually keep running fast, going right up. This is something I found coaching athletes works. It particularly works, dare I say it, like as you get a little more senior, a little bit more experience, keeping your legs turning over, keeping that fast run going, keeping a little bit of intensity going right up till race week. You don't have to do a lot. It doesn't need to be super hard, but it really does keep you performing at that high level, keeps your engine functioning, and it also, like, it just keeps your body used to running. Whilst particularly in the taper, everything else is coming on the down, you can still do a higher intensity, lower volume session right up until marathon race week, particularly in the early part of race week, so long as you're not taking any injury or health risks, because you wouldn't want to undo all that work. Finally, Deena, I hear that if you're playing a bit of marathon training catch up, a couple of speed sessions dressed in a giant koala bear outfit around the streets of Mammoth is a really good thing to do.
It might gain me support. I don't know if it would give me any benefits whatsoever aside from that. In this episode of Marathon Talk, I am so excited to bring on my friend, Dr. Steve Sigmund of Templeton, California. He is a hospitalist, which is a physician who cares for patients in the ER, most admirably during the COVID pandemic. He has a personal best in the marathon of 3 hours, 30 minutes, and this weekend was one of over 3,000 marathon runners to receive a 6-star medal at the Tokyo Marathon. Our listeners will have a lot to learn from Steve, and it's my hope his enthusiasm rubs off on each and every one of you. He's still wearing that post-race glow that comes with such a great accomplishment. Dr. Steve Sigmund, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Oh, well, thank you so much for a warm introduction. I'm very grateful that you're having me here, Deena. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everything that Abbott has done as well. I mean, to promote this, to travel the globe, to make this such a amazing goal for a world journey, it truly has been an incredible experience.
Yeah, and the trials of getting to the races. Your personal best got you your spot at the Boston Marathon, qualified you for the Boston Marathon in 2020, but you couldn't run because of the pandemic.
That's right.
And so you had to wait a year, isn't that right?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, so there's so much that goes into it. So I'm just so excited for your accomplishment, for getting this big medal. It's not just a Tokyo Marathon medal and an Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star medal. You also got a Guinness World Record medal. Did you pick that medal up?
I did. And I have to admit, that was one of my favorite medals to get. I remember, I'm a little older because you can't see me, but I remember as a kid going to the bookmobile and signing up to get that book. And flipping through the Guinness Book of World Records, and there'd be the guy with the longest fingernails, the biggest mustache, the fastest times, and you'd have it, and you just go, this is amazing, look at these people. And now, I'm beyond what I would even dream. I'm actually part of the Guinness Book of World Records. I mean, you may not be able to find my name in the 3,000 unless you really look, but to be part of something that as a kid, you go out of your way to get this book flipped through, say, look at these amazing people. Oh my gosh, how do they do this? And I would have never guessed in my wildest dreams, I'd be part of this. So that is one of my favorite medals. I was so proud to get this. And I just stared at it and go, oh my gosh, I am part of this childhood fantasy. It's incredible.
And you're going home with 3 medals. You're not going home yet because you're staying in Tokyo for quite a while. But where do you keep your medals? Are these medals that you're coming home with going to have a special place, or do you put them in with all the others that you have reaped over the years? Where do your medals go in your home in California?
Well, I've been saving this. So I recently had a party, and I run with this group of women who are called the Soul Sisters, SOLE, Soul Sisters. Just shout out to my girls back on the Central Coast. So I'm the only male runner that they adopted, called the Soul Bro. But I keep telling them they keep me just as eye candy. You know, women. I always have to keep telling them, I'm more than just a body. I have a mind. So what they did is they threw me this party. And I was so shocked. So it was me and another one of our soul sisters. We're really the first ones from the Central Coast to complete this huge world epic tour. And we went in and the soul sisters all got together and they just showered us with gifts. So one of my favorite gifts is they created this box to hang all my medals that they handmade. They put on all the strips inside the box, personalized. I thought it was store-bought, and then I looked at it. It's got my name. It's got the marathons I've run. It's got the people in my life in it. And on the back of it, everybody signed it. And in the middle of the party, the biggest shock and surprise, and I was so excited, my coach popped in who drove 8 hours through a hailstorm, took multiple directions. And I was shocked when I saw him. That was an amazing treat. So that box, not only will it display my medals, it has a very special place in my heart. You know, between the Soul Sisters, my coach, and my family all being there, personally amazed and signed. So I have them right now just sitting in my closet. But when I get home, I am going to be very proud to display it for all its meanings on multiple levels.
There is so much to unpack in what you just said. I think you're the envy of every male listener. Like, how do I get into an all-female training group, right? The Soul Sisters, which you've been a part of for years. What a lucky guy. And your wife, Shirley, is okay with that. She just probably trusts these women are building you up and making you the man that you are. But what do they give you in those daily training runs? How important is it to train with other people? And especially a group of women that are so supportive of what you're doing?
It is amazing. It's hard to put into words because of my schedule, and particularly the difficult times during COVID. I had to train alone a lot. But those times when I'm with the girls and I'm able to train, and beyond that, when we go on trips, oh my gosh, it makes the rest of the world and time just wash away, as if all that time just passed in a moment. So the way I met them was actually through my wife finding them. I was just starting running, and I really wanted to go out and start testing myself. And probably like everybody's journey, you start with 5Ks, then you go to 10Ks, then you go to half marathons, and then you really take the big leap. So it was just, I was doing half marathons, and they had the women's Nike half marathon up in San Francisco, something I always wanted to do.
Right.
And I couldn't get in. You know, probably as your listeners know, especially with COVID, these tickets and doing this has really become very popular. So it's a challenge sometimes just getting the tickets, but I think it adds to the reward and the whole experience. So one of the Soul Sisters had an extra ticket that she gave me. And that was the first marathon I met the Soul Sisters with. So we ran San Francisco. And at the end of it, you know, the firemen give you, all dressed in tuxedos, gives you your Tiffany medal. But, you know, I couldn't resist. I had to jump into the arms of the firemen. And I think after that, the Soul Sisters kind of said, yeah, let's just keep them. You know, so then I started running with them. And then from there, our relationships grew, and I got to meet everybody in this tremendous group from all walks of life, which is incredible. There are people who are just starting out. There are very accomplished runners in the group. One of the runners who has met my coach a number of times has moved on to become the coach at Templeton and take over Templeton High School track, doing that. So it's really spread. The way the community spreads is incredible. And that's really something I'd love to express. You know, and probably we've all experienced this. Not only does Soul Sisters give you so much support and love, but you come to Tokyo, you're a foreigner in a strange land filled with all these people here to support you. And everybody likes to play the game. Let's pick out the marathoners. So we all sit in the crowd and look. And, you know, you'll see somebody with a Boston jacket or a Boston backpack or a Berlin shirt. And instantly you have a connection. Instantly. You just start talking as if you've known each other forever. And that is an amazing feeling. I've never gone over it, no matter where I am in the world. You could go up to somebody, you'll see the signs. You look at somebody and they go, nice shoes. And you just figured they're a marathon and you start talking to them. It's as if you've known them forever. You have such an incredible, strong connection. You can really, really talk to each other very quickly and really get to the meat and get to know them so well. And you have lifelong friendships. We've traveled the world and there's people I still keep in contact to back in London and back in Berlin. It's amazing who you meet and who you become friends with life.
Right. And for our listeners, I just want to say for Steve's enthusiasm, the only people that I've ever met that match it are the Soul Sisters. They are equally enthusiastic and bubbling with energy and excitement and discipline, but a party follows them wherever they go. They are such a fun group of women. And your coach that you speak so highly of happens to be my husband. So when he went to your Tokyo send-off party, he left me shoveling our decks with from the snow. So I'm glad he made it there safely, and it was such a wonderful evening to send you off to Tokyo in grand style. You said in Tokyo that in the race itself, it was the crowds were so amazing. Was that the highlight of the race for you? Can you speak to the highlights and what it meant to have such an endless sea of support during that 26.2 miles?
It was incredible. I've never met such warm people. They go out of the way to go ahead and help you while you're here. Anytime we needed directions, people would stop, get out of line, try to help us, point us in the right direction. When we went to go get our tickets, they were trying to figure out ways we could buy it cheaper. And we just said, we're fine. We just want to figure out how to get here. They're incredibly warm, incredibly helpful. I think the highlight for me, though, for this trip is I've traveled to these marathons, and usually I take one of my kids at any given moment. I have my middle son, Nolan, came with me to Berlin. His highlight, and he's in his 20s, so of course was Oktoberfest. So he was very happy about that.
Good choice, Nolan.
Yeah, he knows where to go. My oldest son, Justin, he's traveled with me to London, and that was just an amazing experience we shared between us. When we went to Germany, I actually went with a couple of my soul sisters and along with my middle son, Nolan. And one of the most amazing things, so my family, our ancestry, we originally had to leave Germany during the Holocaust. So, and this is back to my great-grandparents. So it was two sisters, and one sister went to Australia, and one sister came to America, and we all kind of came from that motley crew. So we went out to Germany and actually reached out and found my cousin in Berlin. So we went there and met him and his family. And he had moved there because apparently in Germany, if you show your ancestry line and he holds the family tree, he was able to show we originally lived there, had to leave and came back. So his dual citizenship. And I've never met him in my life. We texted a couple times before I showed up. I guess I never told you this story, Deena, huh? And
No.
We showed up, and me and the Soul Sisters, and it was an incredible experience. I mean, I got to learn about my family, the family history. That part went to Australia and started a leotard company and then moved to Israel and went back. Got to meet this whole other side of the family, and we still keep in contact with him. I think my soul sisters still keep in contact with him every now and then. So they all have a place to go when they go to Germany. So that was amazing. Coming to Tokyo, it's just, what really I could not get out of my head while I was running the marathon. I started all this, it's a 7-year journey, and everybody has this story of their own journeys, but we walk this path together for a while, like that old saying, until we separate, so we're all walking this path. And while I was running, all I could think of is in 2016, when I put on my first pair of shoes, I went to a marathon that I had never trained and had no idea what to expect, which I learned then, and this is just an announcement, everybody should have a coach and not go through that. But once I put on my shoes, Who would think 7 years ago, I would be on the other side of the world with my 3 children, speaking a foreign language, trying to navigate through a whole new world with a people that just are there to help you and just want you to do your best and will do anything to go out of their way for you to really, really reach your dreams. I was just amazed. And whenever I'd run, Tokyo is a beautiful city. It really is. We went to the top of the tower and you cannot see the end of it. It was incredible. But when I ran, I really looked at the people. And, for people in the marathon and you look at the crowd and you catch somebody's eye and they look at you and they clap a little faster. They wave a little harder or, they shout your name. It's as if you just took a goo. You feel great.
A little energy for your spirit. So these millions of people are out there all morning cheering each one of you on, but you specifically, because you could feel it on an individual level. And you cross that finish line and you get your Tokyo medal. You go to one of the 2 Abbott tents because they needed 2 for this event. And you get your 6-star medal. What did that accomplishment feel like? Because it's still pretty raw. This is the soonest we've interviewed somebody after their race. So tell me, was there an emotion there that speaks loudly? Was it just joy? What was that?
Oh my gosh. I just think about it, I still get a little tearful. It was such a feeling that as you see this line coming in front of you and you're getting closer and closer, you just hear in your head, I'm doing it. I'm really doing this. I started years ago. We've all gone through difficult times. For my journey, I started in New York. Then I went to Chicago. Then there was COVID, and everything came to a halt for all of us. And I think, thank God now things are so much better. But in those days, and it's hard to remember the really difficult, dark times, we knew so little of this disease. Particularly in what I had to do. I remember working in the office and meeting people all gowned up with my nurse on the street, treating them in their cars, rolling down the window because we didn't know anything about it. There were no vaccines. We knew very little. Then going into the hospital and really walking a difficult path with limited resources to help people. It was incredibly heart-wrenching and really not knowing where the world was going to go. Thank goodness for our advances in science and the hardworking individuals around the globe who really work together to work on protecting us. And as things progressed and gotten better and the races started to open up, this Tokyo ticket that I've been holding for 2020 for 3 years, still warm in my hand like everybody else's. And then we had the go-ahead. And then it was still unsure, and we were all sitting on pins and needles, and they finally said, yes, we're going to do this. And you just could think, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And I kind of felt that way the whole time during the whole training, like, is it going to happen? Is it not? It had been so long, it was hard to believe. And then it really didn't hit me until you get on the plane, and I'm sitting next to my kids, and you're like, we're traveling around the world. We're going to travel around the world, speak another language, run in a foreign country, meet people we've never met, eat amazing foods. And you get off and you get at the hotel. And, it's a challenge. There's no question in Tokyo on this side of the world. There's still masks. There's still issues. There's still risks. So there are challenges being COVID tested twice before the race, getting temperature checks, getting everything checked in. It's a challenge, but again, you have to do what's right for something that's a pandemic to really protect the earth. And then you get to the starting line. And everybody feels like, is this app going to work? Did I run a temperature? Is this going to go through? And you pass the detector and you're in. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in, I'm waiting, I'm in, this is it. And you start running. And really at the end, when you cross that line and you just just say, I'm doing this. This is happening. This is really happening. And you pass under the bridge, and there are people clapping and screaming and waving, and you turn and you see the Abbott tent, the tent you've been working on for this journey for so long. I think it's you just see nothing but tears in people's eyes. It's incredible. For me, tears in my eyes of happiness and a little bit of pain, but mostly happiness finishing it. And then I met a mutual friend of ours, Lorna, who is with Abbott World Mages, and she gives you a big hug and congratulates me, as somebody I've been meeting as I've traveled through the World Majors, seeing her at my next stop and my next stop and my next stop, and she's at the end for you. And then they give me my medal, and then I see on the other side of the tent my kids screaming, saying, "We found you! We found you!" And finding them, it's beyond words.
Right. Amongst all those people, you were able to connect with them. And it really does feel like you get initiated into a family. But I actually kind of forgot what a huge investment Tokyo was for so many of you. It was years in the process, right? Not just getting those other 5 stars under your belt, but Tokyo itself. It's so hard to get into, and the pandemic hitting, you getting greeted by Justin Nolan and Jade at the finish line and sharing this amazing trip with them. What do other runners need to know before going to Tokyo? You spoke to some of the challenges, like logistical challenges, kind of communication barriers, but what should other runners know before heading to Tokyo? Anything you wish you would have known?
Well, I wish I knew more Japanese coming in. I would strongly encourage learning a few words. My favorite is arigato gozaimasu, or arigato for short, for thank you. It's people go out of the way to help you. It's incredible how warm they are. It's the only place I've been in the world that, as the police cars are asking people to get out of the way to go do their job, they actually go on a loudspeaker, "Arigato gozaimasu," to thank people as they drive away, to give you an idea how friendly, because I've never seen that in America. So I would really encourage knowing a few basic words as you come on in. Ohayo is good morning. I just get some basics down as you travel. I would really recommend that. I would strongly recommend making reservations. A lot of these restaurants, and there's very small, they're called ozakayas. They are they get very full very quickly. They seat, it's not like in other countries, they seat only maybe at the sushi bar 5 people and maybe 1 table. So when you go there, make sure, I would really recommend getting some reservations. My son really arranged most of the trip by going on Facebook and Instagram, and that was a resource. We got Lonely Planet. That was another resource we used. The other thing is, in Japan, people take being on time very seriously. And I would very seriously plan to be on time wherever you go. We went to a restaurant and our reservations were at 7 and we got there at 6:55 and they said, "It is not time yet." So at 7 we went in. It's very exacting. And if they tell you dinner is at 7, don't be late. Be there. The other thing too is, on all our tours, we went to the Tokyo Tower. We went to a couple places to see. Things are very much sold out very quickly. You're in a city of over 12 million people. So whatever you do, I'd strongly recommend doing the reservations ahead of time. It's not difficult. You get online. You get on your computer. Most of the sites they do have English. If not, you use Google Translate. They're very simple. You just go on a Google browser and you click the translate bar and it'll put it on English. But I'd strongly having reservations wherever you go. Otherwise, it's much more difficult and much more involved in staying on a lot of lines that happens here with so many people that can't be avoided. I would recommend that. A few words of Japanese. And one of the things to remember, these people here are extremely sweet, polite, will go out of the way. You are a guest in their country, and it is, although difficult with the language barrier to express the same warmth back, you'll get it twofold.
Oh, that's beautiful. And so you were there with your children for more than 2 weeks. You're really taking it in. I feel like you went to Berlin and you connected with ancestors. You're in Tokyo. You're spending your time traveling around. What do you think? I know you haven't, you still have a lot of your trip ahead of you, but what do you think people should have on their bucket list?
Well, for Tokyo, so far, the marathon, of course, is going to be everybody's favorite part of the bucket list beyond belief. But seeing Tokyo is incredible. I would really take in the city. I would really go ahead and get involved in the culture. Try to go into these yozakayas if you can. Try to meet the people. They're incredibly warm. A few words will go a long way. We're going to try our hands at Pachinko, which is in Japan, sort of like kind of a little gambling, but it looks quite a bit of fun. I try to see Mount Fuji. That is just an incredible landmark to enjoy. We are going to travel up and down the Japanese coast to try to take in as much as we can of the culture and the country while we're here and really appreciate the journey. The most important is be adventurous with the food. It will not disappoint. You could go into a 7-Eleven, get a sandwich and say, oh my gosh, this is the greatest sandwich I've ever had. It's incredible. And they just don't make the food. They will make the flour, roll out the noodles, cut the noodles, put in the food, bring in the fresh food, and serve it to you. It is unworldly. It is something we have never experienced. I think my kids say it best. We've had sushi. They love good food, but this is a whole other level that really has been untouched. I would say, if anything, the most important, be adventurous, try their diet, try their lifestyle. You won't be disappointed. It's one of those wonderful things that you look at that culture and it just helps you even appreciate the beauty of it more.
Absolutely. I think one of the highlights for us when we were there were the temples that were so sacred and manicured. It just impeccable in design, just so beautiful. But I told you before we started recording, my daughter basically ate her way through Tokyo. That's all she wanted to do was like jump to the next meal. She loved the food there so much. Luckily, she's an adventurous eater. I'm going to go back to the pandemic for a bit. And I know it was a hard time for so many of us, but you were working in the ER as a hospitalist. I had no idea what a hospitalist was until I met you, but it's basically a jack of all trades who goes into the ER and treats patients generally, right? So you need to know about pediatrics and you need to know about geriatrics and you need to know about all in between. But can you talk to how you balance? Because I get a lot of questions from people about how do you balance it all? And here you are working in the ER during a pandemic, training for a marathon. You have a whole family to support and who also supports you. But can you talk about how you balance all of that? Besides the fact that I know you have a lot of energy.
Well, it's challenging. And for all the other people doing marathons out there who I've met, they have a lot of energy too. It's always impressive to meet all these individuals around the world. A lot of it is through incredible support. When I finally finished the 6-star journey, I gave a big thank you. And it really, I think, to create a marathon runner, it takes a village. It's incredible during this time. And you have to remember all the things that have changed for us during the journey. For me, thank God I have an amazing staff at my office that have been with me for decades. And I'm always surprised that they keep coming back and keep working. They have unbelievable dedication. They work with the patients. They came in, put themselves at risk during the pandemic. always supportive of me, and that would be part of the time. But a lot of time in the hospital, we would be doing shifts, and that was a marathon on its own. We would typically do shift work, which would be anywhere from 12 hours and longer, depending on what was needed and what was going on, because you don't punch in and punch out. Everything's got to be done, and if there's an issue going on, you stay until the issue is completed, or if somebody needs assistance, you're there for the duration. You're doing your work. So what I would do is I'd work with really adults and elderly and very ill people in the hospital, and the ER come in, and they come in the ER, and when they were very ill, my job would be to go down there and evaluate the situation and admit them and get a treatment plan, either to regular floors, more intensive cores, sometimes ICUs, whatever was really required to do. And then you're really working with a tight-knit group that gives you tremendous support. I work in a small hospital called Twin Cities Community Hospital. It's a small hospital in North County. It's the only one that is a small hospital that really is just covers a very large area of over 50,000 people, and that's the one that's probably over a very large 70-mile radius. And it's just a group of doctors that we all work together in a diligent way until our work is done. Now, one of the beauties is they've been so supportive to everything I'm doing, and having flexibility with my schedule to do this, because it is difficult. And all those people doing the marathons, when those long runs start happening and you got to put in those big mileage, it's challenging to get it in with a work schedule. I'm sure people had to do what I did. You get up at 4:30, put on all your winter clothes. It's cold outside where I am, and get into the 30s. You step outside, your first thoughts are, what's wrong with me that I'm doing this in this freezing weather? And then you start and you train. Having soul sisters have been great to help support me, to join me when they can on my schedule, since my days would be so long with the hospital. I have a dear friend who became ill during all this, who would either go on his elliptical bike in the beginning and unfortunately became too ill to do that, and would sit in his car next to me driving while I ran to help me pass the miles. That was incredible. My wife would go out of her way to make the healthiest food, a lot of Chinese vegetables with a lot of nutrients, and she's an amazing cook. She'd really be diligent about making sure I get all my nutrition done. The hospital would be very flexible with my times and knew certain days when I couldn't come in, or there were certain days I'd say I can't come in, I have a training session, and they'd be, whenever you want to come in, we'll cover for you, and just come in and do your work. They were incredible. And that's really the only way. I found being able to do everything, it's challenging. I'm sure it's challenging for everybody else on this journey. But I could only do it with all the help I received, because there's no way you can do these marathons on your own, I feel, on such a level of completing the Abbott World Majors. It really is an incredible accomplishment. And in every marathon, each one has its own particular challenge. And to do all these challenges on a consistent basis over many years between what's happened in all our lives, the only way to do it is the support of friends, family, co-workers, running groups, and of course, your coach. I couldn't have done this at all without my coach, Andrew. And, the way it all started is my first marathon in New York in 2016. There was a patient I was taking care of who turned out to be a very close friend of yours and Andrew's, who became very ill, who I helped, and that's how I met as a hospitalist, and became really one of the beauties of my profession is you get to know people and really get involved in their lives. And he knew I was interested in marathons, and he said, well, hey, I have a friend who can get you a ticket to go and do the New York Marathon, which is, I'm originally from very close to New York City. I said, I would love it. And then at that time, I was able to get a ticket. I had trained, I think the furthest I had ever run in my life was 16 miles, and thought, I'm good. Then did the marathon, learned very quickly I wasn't good. Finished it barely. And, it's one of those crossroads in life where you could do that and say never again. And then there's a whole bunch, and this really speaks to people who are attracted by the field, that this was such a challenge. This was so amazing. I put myself out there. I'm not going to leave it like this. So I called my friend who's the patient and said, can I get in contact with this coach? And it turned out it was Andrew Castor, who's also the head coach on Abbott, and he has excellent plans there. And when I listen to you, Deena, and you're talking to Martin, and you're talking about your training plans and how you're on a progressive run, I really have that kinship with you. I can really feel that, because I go, I just did that progressive run. I know exactly what you're talking about, And then Andrew took me.
I'm glad we're all on the same page.
And it really is amazing. The kinship, you feel so close to your fellow runners so quickly. It's an amazing feeling. And you just go, you're so blessed to have it. And then Andrew took me from when I finished New York, I think close to 450, in one training cycle, following the program. And the program's up in Abbott. Of course, Deena, with all your accomplishments, you could vouch for his abilities beyond as well as yours. He brought me to 330, and I qualified for Boston. And then once I did that, I went to look at the Abbott website, and I just felt, okay, it's on. I'm doing this.
Do you think that you treat them like being a doctor and so passionate about running and so involved in your family? Do you feel like you treat them as three different aspects of your life, or is your whole life just in one bucket and you just draw on it all at the same time? How do you manage that?
That's an excellent question. I actually think they all connect in a way. Running a marathon, it takes discipline, work. Some days you make gains. Some days, not so great, you lose. But you're always moving one direction or the other every day. But over time, with dedication, with diligence, with training, with getting yourself out there, feeling it, wanting to do it, it's really boils down to, no, you have to do this. You're going to get up and you're going to do this for the ultimate goal. And it really comes to your mindset that this is something you have to do, and that's very much how I feel about medicine. Medicine's a challenge, especially during the times of COVID, during the times when people were very ill, during the times when nobody knew what was going on. And there's days you just go, yes, this is going to be a long shift. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be difficult. You're dealing with people who are really terminally ill. You're dealing with families who are going to be under the difficulty of saying their last goodbyes. And it's going to be a long, difficult day. And that's a marathon itself, because I've spoken, I think every now and then I'll tell you, Deena, and I'll tell Andrew and your friends, you just go in at 7 a.m, and before you know it, and you blink your eyes, it is, 8, 9 o'clock at night. No lunch break, no stopping. You just blink in, and that's how marathons are. Tokyo, you get to the start line. I see the confetti go off. I was by the front. You see it
the best.
Go off. It was incredible. Everybody's running, and all you could think of is, I'm doing this. It's happening. It's happening now. And before you know it, tears are in your eyes as you cross the finish line, and you go, I can't believe it's happened. And then all those people raising families. There's no time in life when you raise a kid and you spike that football, you hit that home run, you round the bases, and you're done. It just goes on forever. You go with your kids, you have challenges as the years go by. Every kid, every year as they age, it will be different challenges for you as it goes on. And there is no time it ends. But life is much better as a roller coaster than a merry-go-round. You know, merry-go-rounds are safe and you could go round and round and you could feel secure, but roller coasters, you don't know what'll happen, but it's exciting.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said. I don't think any one of my marathons has gone by in a blink of an eye, like your shifts in the ER or your marathon seem to be. That might be an interesting question to ask our listeners. For the sake of time, and you have a lot of sightseeing to do, I wanted to ask one final question. You have this 6-star medal. You have a Guinness World Record medal. You have a Tokyo Marathon medal. When you get home and recover from this amazing trip, what comes next after all these accomplishments?
You know, I think that's the bittersweet part when you finish a marathon. It's so amazing and it's such a high. And I think everybody is always thinking, well, what next? Well, I know for me, I have to, fill in some shifts, and I promised I would come back to the hospital when this adventure ends. So I have some work to catch up on and help. I have to also go to the office and catch up a bit. One of the things I really want to do, because I've been so busy between doing the marathons, the hospital, the office, the family, I want to spend a little more time with my wife who was unable to make this trip and do a few things with her. That's the first thing on my list. I want to go ahead and I want to spend some time with the Soul Sisters now that I'm back. And I want to go visit you and Andrew up in Mammoth. I'm just waiting for the snow to melt, because after New York, I don't want to face that. But I want to reconnect with my friends and then maybe see what they're doing and go on some adventures with them. So I haven't quite figured that part out yet.
Dr. Sigmund, your room is ready here in Mammoth whenever that snow melts. Enjoy Japan with your children. Have a wonderful rest of your trip there and safe travels back to the States. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you so much for having me, Deena. Thank you. I'm very honored that you would have me do this. And a huge thank you to Abbott for creating such a life goal for all of us. I think all of us really appreciate that this has been created really for us to test ourselves, enjoy ourselves, and grow, seeing the world.
Well, that's it for this week's show. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Steve and the Tokyo wrap-up. Deena, what are you up to?
Well, we are in marathon season, so I will be in Los Angeles for the LA Marathon presented by ASICS. I'll be part of the television broadcast once again this year. I love covering that race because there's so many iconic landmarks along the way, and I love to bring the viewers through it.
That's lovely, actually, isn't it? You get to go to LA. When you say you do the broadcast, does that mean you're in LA, like in a studio, or are you out on a truck, or what does it actually look like?
I am sitting in a studio in a dress and high heels, caked in makeup with a big screen in front of me, letting the race unfold and just calling what I see. And it's always an exciting race there. But I always do mention what the runners are passing because it's unbelievable in 26.2 miles that you can start at Dodger Stadium and go on Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset Boulevard and Rodeo Drive and the Chinese Theater. And you go through all the small towns of Little Greece and Little Tokyo. And it's just a fantastic marathon, really fun one to cover.
Yeah, great. Well, have loads of fun. I'm presenting at a conference in... Where is it? It's near Reading in the UK, around the benefits of movement for emotional health and mental well-being. I'm also looking after the kids. My wife, Liz, is away. She's part of the British cross-country team management, and they're set up and they're having a big review up in Loughborough, where we used to live. It's the UK Inter-Counties cross-country champs. So she'll be up there supporting the management and the team. Right, that is it for episode 12. We hope you enjoyed the show. Enjoy the run wherever it takes you.